Hello, I am Zahir Alam. Welcome you all on Frankly Speaking. Our guest today is Dan Austin, Director of Voice of America, VOA, the official external television and broadcasting service of the United States federal government. Dan Austin became the 27th Director of the Voice of America on October 2006. As Director of VOA, Austin oversees a worldwide multimedia broadcasting operation in almost 50 languages, reaching more than 115 million people each week around the globe, including Bangladesh. He has the overall responsibility for planning, organization, direction, and policy application of all VOA activities. He joined VOA following a 36-year career with Dow Jones and Company, serving most recently as Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Ottawa Newspapers Incorporated and the community media subsidiary of Dow Jones with print and internet publications in 7 states. Austin began his journalism career in 1970. Welcome, Dan Austin, on Frankly Speaking.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. Possibly this is your maiden visit in Bangladesh, first visit in Bangladesh. So what are the programs in your itinerary and you have planned here to meet, and what are the programs you have attended so far in Bangladesh?
I have met with our VOA fan club. There are over 1,000 VOA fan clubs in this country. They are all very loyal fans of VOA, and it was a pleasure to meet with them. I've participated in celebrations of our 50th anniversary of our Bangla service, meeting with just a number of different people from media, from private industry in the country.
So what impressions you have got so far from meeting with the fans of VOA in different clubs and other people in Bangladesh?
They seem to like what we do, which is always good news. They seem to want more of it, which is also good news for us. But I am impressed on the whole with how vibrant the media has become in this country. I know that that was not always so. And I think in recent years, clearly, privatization, free media has really contributed to the government, to the state of life here in this country. And that shows through in the enthusiasm of the people in media in Bangladesh.
I mentioned at the beginning that you have had many responsibilities in VOA. And your long career, you have had many important assignments. So what are your goals, especially in VOA? What are you doing over there in VOA?
I think my background is in print journalism and some internet. But the fundamental principles, whether you're in print or on radio or on television, are the same. And that is to be good journalists. To be comprehensive, to be accurate, to be fair, and basically to tell the truth. And if I could do anything at all at VOA, it's to reinforce those values among our broadcasters. As you said at the outset, we have almost 50 language services staffed by very, very good journalists from around the world. My contribution, I think, will be to encourage them to maintain the high professional quality of the Voice of America.
But we know that you also mentioned that you have, apart from English, you have 50 other languages and broadcast programs from there. So how do you manage such a huge organizations?
With a lot of trust, I think would be the answer. No, the answer to how to manage a diverse group like this, and our headquarters in Washington, frankly, reminds me of the United Nations. You can walk down our hallways and see people from all different cultures, different countries from around the world. It's really quite fascinating. The key to managing an organization like that is to make sure that you've got very, very good people in key positions. Whether they're a language service chief or a director of a division, it's very, very important that senior management and that line management be top quality. If you get the right people in those jobs, then managing isn't such an awesome task.
How many people works altogether with VOA?
In our Washington headquarters, there are 1,100 people there, and then we have a number spread around the world. We also have a network of what we call stringers, correspondents. These are people who can also work for other organizations, but do work for us on a per story contribution basis. And there are over 1,000 of those as well. So it's really quite a large organization.
Okay, you said that you're impressed seeing the vibrance of Bangladeshi media. So what would you say about how we can enhance the news quality in our media, and especially in broadcast, how we can expand our audience especially?
Well, it does depend on what your audience wants and needs, and I understand that different audiences, different demographic segments,
yes.
young people, old people have
yeah.
different needs. I think one has to be entertaining, but not at the expense of news. Sometimes I know it happens in the United States, sometimes people confuse news and entertainment. Big mistake when that happens. But that doesn't mean that news has to be boring or put you to sleep. It can be exciting. It can be informative, and it can engage the audience.
But sometimes news should be entertaining also, no?
I think so, absolutely, absolutely.
So in terms of improved profitability, what kind of profitable, do you think the VOA is a very profitable organization?
One of the good things about working for the government, which I do for the American government, I work for the American taxpayers. They're not concerned about whether or not we're profitable. They do like us to be efficient. But more importantly, they want us to reach large audiences around the world. So unlike a commercial network, CNN, for example, an international broadcaster, we don't have to worry about the bottom line. All we have to worry about is the quality of our programming and whether or not it's attracting an audience.
Do you find anybody as your competitor in the global arena, like BBC or any other organization?
Well, I have enormous respect for the BBC and for other international broadcasters. Deutsche Welle is active in this part of the country. Radio France, others are very active, and they're all good at what they do. So I guess maybe we're competitors, but in a friendly sort of way. I think we share common values in an interest in getting news and information that people can believe out there.
Okay, we know that VOA broadcasts by satellite and on FM, sometimes on shortwave radio frequencies. So in Bangladesh especially, do you have any plan to broadcast in medium wave broadcasts?
We are broadcasting in medium wave now. We started a few years ago. We also do broadcast in shortwave, and we will be in our broadcasting on FM too. So we want to make all those various bands available to our listeners. We could probably do more and build a larger audience.
Then, you know, right this moment, the global challenges are being mounting in various fronts, especially fighting terrorism, fighting extremism, and there are so many fronts where people are deeply engaged, and especially in third world countries who have been suffering from extreme poverty. So in your point of view, what are the issues media should focus on? In which way? Can you tell me how to fight this menace?
I think the best thing that media can do, I mean, we in media don't do policy. We just report on it. Okay. But I think comprehensive, in-depth reporting on the issues that are a concern to everybody everywhere, basic human rights, issues of women's rights is another one, issues of corruption. This is a problem throughout the world. Fair and accurate reporting on these issues, I think, is welcome to everybody.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's also putting the world in context for people, whether it's different cultures, different religions. People really appreciate the context that I think a good broadcast can bring to some of these issues.
you know, a huge anti-corruption drive has been waged in, especially in Bangladesh, since January 11.
Right.
So, like a country like Bangladesh, is this the way? Do you have any insight about that? How to fight how to deal with this problem, and do you have any optimism about the drive that it will be successful in the future?
Well, a Supreme Court justice in the United States said many, many years ago that sunshine is the best disinfectant. And what he meant by that was the more you expose some of the more, say, underhanded goings on, the better off society is going to be. And that really is one of the jobs that a good free media can play. And I think that's the way you start to deal with corruption. But it also takes an understanding and conveying to people why corruption is a problem. You need to address issues such as why does corruption exist within a certain society? What caused that to happen? What steps do we as a society, for example, need to take to correct that? Because very often corruption is simply people in some cases who feel they're not earning enough money or being paid enough as a government official, and so they'll seek bribes, for example. There's all kinds of examples like that. The media, I think, can do a fine job of looking at those root causes of something like corruption, exposing it, and talking about it.
So, you know, that do you think that media can play an instrumental role in fighting corruption, in rooting out corruption?
Ultimately, it's up to the people themselves. But what the media can do is inform people. And then they'll make the decision. Do they want to tolerate this? Do they want to accept this or not? The media can't change that. That is up to the people.
But don't you think the level of education is important matter in this context, especially their lack of knowledge, how to deal with the problems, how to react on the problems. So the countries like Bangladesh, the level of education is much lower than the other countries, especially the Western countries. So in that society, what can be done, or what role can be played by the media?
I think what you can do is show how in other countries the problem was dealt with. And so I think showing by example what happens when corruption is addressed, say in a Western developed country, what the results are of addressing that problem successfully or unsuccessfully. And that basically serves as a textbook, if you will, for people who are perhaps watching. They may not be as educated, but they can certainly understand words and pictures that show these things. So I think just telling those stories and sharing those stories is important.
Good or bad, whatever the thing is,
good
just
or bad,
tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Okay. But, one more thing is that the major challenges before Bangladesh is to hold election at the end of this year. And being a country, United States is the champion of democracy, we know, and they have always been talking about democracy. So how do you look at the challenge which posed for Bangladesh, especially holding a free and fair, credible election at the end of this year?
Well, I'm not an expert, and I would not presume to tell anybody in Bangladesh how their government ought to be run. We have enough difficulties trying to run our own.
Yeah.
But I will say that from what I've seen and read, it seems to me that elections will be held, that there is a great desire among the people of this country for that kind of election, and I see no reason why that shouldn't happen.
So would you shed some lights about the coming American election, in which way it is heading toward?
This is one of the most competitive and frankly one of the most interesting American presidential elections.
Especially in the Democrat camp.
Yes, especially in the Democratic Party with Senator Clinton and Senator Obama running neck and neck right now. They started very, very early. No one expected the race would be this tight. so late in the game, and it may not be over for some time. I've listened as our own media have made predictions, and the one thing I can say is that we've been consistently wrong on how this is going to turn out. So I'm very loath to make any predictions, but I will say it is fascinating. The American people, for the first time in years, I've never seen such a level of interest in the contest, both Republican and Democrat. And I must tell you that on my visits around the various parts of the world, there's also great interest in this American election. If for no other reason than at the Democratic Party side, you have, a black man, an African American, and a woman, running, neck and neck. Not that unusual in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, unusual in America.
Then do you feel, or do you have any special editorial guidelines from the federal government in running the VOA?
No, the only guidance we have is a law that was passed in the 1970s that basically said, VOA, practice good journalism, be comprehensive, be accurate, be objective, be balanced, be fair. Beyond that, that's the only guidance we get. There is no editorial interference, if you will. Indeed, the way we're set up, we have what we call a firewall that is meant to, in our structure, that is meant to prevent any undue influence in our programming by anybody in the administration or in the Congress, for that matter. And we've operated that way for years and years and years.
Completely independent.
Completely independent.
Okay, that's good. One thing, actually, taking into account the huge interest of the audience or listener from Bangladesh in Bangla programs from VOA, do you have any plan to open up office in Dhaka or in Bangladesh?
I've been asked that, and indeed it came up in my meeting with the VOA fan clubs. In Bangladesh, unlike in many other countries where VOA has a thriving language service as we do here, our fan clubs do even more. They are very involved in their communities in this country. They take on special projects with their own time, their own money, their own resources to help their communities and help their country. So that's an added dimension to the Voice of America presence in Bangladesh that I don't find in many other countries where we operate. So while we don't have an office here now, it may be that we could try and find some way to accommodate this extra effort that these very loyal and dedicated fans make.
So another thing is we have partnership with NTV also, with VOA.
Yes, indeed.
And we broadcast program from which is produced by the VOA Bangla service especially. And you have many other affiliates and contract agreements with many radio and television across the world. So any plan to expand cooperation or any venture, more cooperation, more partnership with Bangladesh?
If we can, we would certainly explore that. Working through affiliates is a very effective way of getting our programming in front of people, whether it's local television or FM radio, which is, you have to be local when you're doing that because the signal only goes so far. Affiliates are very, very important to us.
Okay, and we are almost at the end of our program. So would you like to add any further thoughts about your Bangladesh trip or any other issues?
My thought is that I am so delighted that after 50 years of service to the people of Bangladesh, we're still doing our job and people are still responding to it. We seem to be able to keep ourselves fresh and interesting and alive, and to see the kind of reception that I've experienced here is really quite something. It tells me that at least in Bangladesh, we're doing our jobs, and that in itself is a wonderful thing.
How did you find meeting people in Bangladesh? What memories you're taking back home?
Absolutely fascinating, the different cultures, the curiosity about the United States and America and just exactly how we work, the interest in the elections. in America. I think that's probably worldwide. And also, I must say, the people here have been extraordinarily polite and kind. The hospitality has been just wonderful.
Very simple people here.
Very nice people.
Very nice people. Thank you very much, Dan Austin, for being with us.
My pleasure.
Sure.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, an accomplished journalist, Mr. Dan Austin oversees VOA broadcasting network of the U.S. government. He has elaborated about VOA activities, which daily broadcasts include news, reports, editorials, and discussions of the U.S. and global political and cultural events in more than 50 languages. We wish him every success in his challenging responsibilities, and we hope that VOA will cover more extensively news and other programs in Bangla as well. We invite you to watch our next program. Until then, take care and bye-bye.